Hello. In the last video, we actually finished our migrations. I've been testing around everything a little bit in the back, and now we actually have to change a few more things to our user model, and that is the field property here. So every optional actually has to be an optional field. So optional, optional, right? Or is it option? Yeah, I think it's that one, right? Let me check really quick because I forgot how to write optional. Optional. Optional, yes. So I'm gonna run this really quick to see if the syntax is correct. And the reason why we're gonna make this an optional field, optional. Yes, that's how we write it. Now I'm sure. Okay, yeah, this is something I was playing around with in the back because I'm still fairly new to Vapor 3, or like the size of this magnitude. So use the model, and we're gonna copy the optional key, and we're gonna give that to everything that is optional. So date of birth is optional, created at is not optional, updated at not, zip is optional, field of country, subscribed at, subscription end, and the user role is not optional. And the reason why we're gonna do this, and we're also gonna do this with the other models, is because otherwise we can't save them as optional as optionals inside the database. This is actually something I found out last night or this morning. It was like 4 o'clock and 4 o'clock or something. It was pretty extreme. Okay, so after that we go to article model, and here we're gonna do the same. So everything is optional, right? So we're gonna make that all optional fields. Field. I think we can also make. No, we need an. No, the content state is not going to be the content role. It's also not going to be optional. The save by users is going to be optional. Let's make this optional really quick. Created add not. Then we have the publish date. The publish date is going to be an optional. So let's see if we have also the save the users here somewhere. That's here. We actually have to make this an optional as well. You go to category model. No, category model is all right like this. Okay. So the title of the course model is optional, description is optional, short description also, header image is optional, article, syllabus, assets URL, content. No, the content state is not optional. The publish date is optional. And the created add not. The instructor is not optional. And the parent is also not optional. And children we don't need to do. Then we go to lecture. And in the lecture we're actually going to do the same. So title is optional. And before is optional, created at not, updated at not, publish date should be optional. Content state not, content is optional. Okay, then we're actually gonna check the publish date here. It's gonna be an optional as well. Then we're gonna go to the section model. The title is not optional. Okay, so in the so only the publish date is optional. That's perfect. Okay, so now we actually did everything that we need to do. Let's run this one more time to see if the syntax is correct. Okay, the syntax is correct because it runs. I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna open up Docker because I'm gonna reset the database, which I have open here. I'm gonna stop it because normally I'm always using the Postgres. For my teacher note, for example, I use this one. Sometimes I have like 5 or 6, 7 different Postgres installations. So we're gonna open up the terminal. And we want to go, and I'm gonna run this docker run command. And this way we're actually creating a new database. Okay. So now it's gonna connect to the database, and the moment it sees that the database is empty, it's actually gonna run the migrations. So we're gonna run those now. And I think the migrations have been successful. Okay, perfect. Okay. So now we go to user model. Let's see. And in user model, we can actually create a new initializer. So we're actually gonna create a new init. And in here, we're actually gonna initialize all the information which we need, right? So this is gonna be the string. We're gonna call email. It's gonna be string. We're gonna call password. It's gonna be string. Created at. It's gonna be date. And updated at. It's gonna be date. And last but not least, we're gonna need the user role. And this is gonna be a user role dot raw value. Okay, and the reason why we create an extra init is because this is the information we need to create a new user. Even pauze. 3, 2, 1. And yeah, so we're gonna initialize this by self.username is equal to username. Self.password is equal to password. Self.email is equal to email. Self.createdAt is createdAt. Self.updatedAt is equal to updatedAt, and self.userRole is equal to user role. Okay, so we created a new initializer, and what this does with this one, we can actually create a new user without filling in all this information, because for me personally, I think it's cleaner if we write it like this instead of this, because otherwise you have to give each value nil, and that's really annoying. Okay, so I'm gonna open up my ebook, and we're gonna add something, and this is from the Ray Wenderlich book, and this is gonna be the user.public. And the reason why we're gonna use user.public is because we have because there's one problem when you create a new user. The moment when you create a new user on a creation route, it sends back all the information of the user, so also the password hash. And sending back the password hash is actually really bad practice, because for example, let's say you have to log in on your government website, right? You have to do your taxes, and you have like somebody hacked you, and they sent the password hash to you as well. The person who hacked you can actually grab that password hash and try to crack it to get to your password. Of course, with bcrypt, that's almost impossible, but in these days, nothing is impossible. So just make sure that you, just make sure that you never send back a password hash. So first thing we need is a final class of public, and this is going to be content, right? Yes. Okay. So the information we want to send back is actually ID, I think. Yeah, let's do ID. So var ID is going to be UUID. Var username is going to be string. And var email is also going to be string. And then we also add var created at, because I actually want to show the user that they got something back. Okay, so inside the class, we're actually going to call empty init. And under there, we're actually going to call the initial init. And this is going to be ID of UUID. Right? Yes. Then we're going to need the username of string, email of string, and we have created add of date. Okay, then we're going to do self.id is equal to id, self.username is equal to username, self.email is equal to email, and self.created add is equal to created add. Okay, so actually we create a new final class inside the class, and we actually gave its own initializer. So this is the information which we're gonna send back to the user the moment that they register or when they log in. Or this is actually also the information which we as admins are gonna return into the backend, because we as admins we don't want to see your password. We don't want to know, and it's actually also against GDPR to do stuff like that. So that's why we actually are shielding ourselves and you from potential data hazards. So let's clean this up really quick. Now we're actually going to write some extensions. So extension user, and this is going to be func convert to public. So with this function, we're actually going to convert the information which we want from the user. We're actually going to convert it. We're going to convert it to public. And what we're going to do here is going to return user dot user model dot public. Then we have ID. It's going to be ID. Username is going to be username. And email is going to be email. And created add is going to be created add. Let me check if this is correct. Yes, this is correct. So after that, we actually need a few other extensions, and I'm going to add the extensions. I think we're going to add it inside the user model, because this is actually only for the user model. So we can actually do extension of event loop feature, where value is equal to user model. In here, we can do func convert to public throws user model dot public. I think. Oh, wait a second. This has to be an event loop feature. I'm sorry. So event loop feature, an array, right? No, not an array yet. This is another one. So user model dot public. Okay, so in here, we're actually going to return self.map. And this is going to be a user in. And after that, we're going to do return user.convert to public. Okay, let me check really quick. Yes. Okay, return self.map user in. Yes, this one is finished. Then we have another one, extension. And this is going to be collection, where value. Oh wait, this is element, sorry. Is equal to user model. And there we're going to do func convert to public. Then we're going to have an array of user model dot public. And here we're going to do return self.map It's going to be $0 dot, let me check, convert to public. And next is going to be extension. This is going to be another extension on the event loop feature. And in here we're going to do where value is equal to array of user model and this is going to be func convert to public, and we're going to throw an event loop feature of an array of user model dot public, return self.map, and in here we're going to do $0 dot convert to public. Okay, so this was a lot of code. I actually decided last night that I told you at the start of this series that we're going to build the API in async, but we're actually going to build everything using event loop features. Because I actually found that for Devscorch that's easier, because I had like a lot of problems building async in the back, so that's why I actually decided to go back to event loop features. This works also really good, so for this, for now, it works. And if I ever need to update the backend to async, we can actually do that. Even pauze. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so now we have all done all that. What we have to do now is actually start creating our controller, right? But because I like to work in a way where the user can talk to the controller, but the controller talks to another function, so a service, we're actually going to create or recreate inside the app. We're actually going to recreate the services folder. In here, we're going to add a new folder. This is going to be user services. In there, a new file. And this is going to be one second, I have to change the file name for some reason it doesn't work always. So import fluent, import vapor, and now we're actually gonna change the file name. Why can't I change the file name? Okay, we will get back to that. Okay, so we can create a struct of create new user service, and in here we're gonna create a static func create new user, and this is gonna throw event loop feature of user dot public. No, user model, sorry. User model to public. Okay, so to do this, we actually need to create, or we actually need a way of sending information to the user, right? So what we're gonna do here, underscore new user is equal to new user, comma, underscore, rec is gonna be request. Okay, so the new user doesn't exist yet, and this is where the DTO come in. So inside the DTO folder, we're gonna create a new file. And this file is gonna be import fluent, import vapor, and in here we're actually going to create a struct called new user, and this conforms to content, And I'm gonna check if I can change the file now. Yes, I can. So this is the new user. So the DTO, data transferable object, is actually a way of information which we're gonna send. So it's actually just a small object of information which we're gonna decode. So create new user service. Okay, so that's this one. Perfect. Okay, so what we're gonna do now, we're actually gonna write the user statement here. So we're gonna do let user is equal to user model. We're gonna take this one. So that's gonna be the new user dot username. And we're gonna do a new user dot email. Password is gonna be try b crypt dot hash. And in here we're actually gonna hash the password. So that means we're gonna do new user dot password. And the reason why we are hashing the password is because storing the password as plain text inside a database is unsafe and should never be done. And believe me, there are still big companies who actually do it. It's really crazy, but we are not gonna do it because we are not as stupid as big companies. Okay, under there we're gonna do return user.save on rec.db. After that, we're gonna do new user, new in, and then we're gonna do return user dot convert to public. And theoretically, when we now run this, this should actually work. So now we go to our controllers, and in here we're gonna create a new file, and this file is gonna be the create user controller. Create user controller. In here, import Fluent, import Vapor, and in here we're gonna do struct create new user controller, and in here we're actually gonna create a function. So func boot. No, wait a second. The create user controller is actually gonna be a route collection. And this way, we're actually going to call boot. Nope. We need to func boot. That one. Yes, perfect. Under there, func create user. Then we're going to do dash rec is going to be request. Throws. Event loop feature of user.public. No, user model.public, sorry, .public. Open this up. And now we're going to do let new user equal try rec dot content dot decode. This is going to be the new user. New user dot self. And under there we're going to do return. And we're going to call the create new user service dot create user. So the new user is going to be new user, and rec is going to be rec. And I think this is finished. Oh, and then we need to actually call in here. We're going to do routes dot post. Oh, we're going to make this, we're going to call this users really quick. And after that, we're going to use the create user function like this. Then we go to routes. That's here. Inside routes, we're going to do let create user controller equals create user controller. And this has to be a capital C, otherwise it's not going to work. And after that, we're going to do app.register collection, and the collection is going to be create user controller. Wait a second, I think this has to be create new user controller. Yes, okay. So let's run this. Let's see if everything works. If the syntax is correct, and apparently it isn't. Oh, yes, of course. We need to do try, otherwise nothing happens. And let's see if we are able to create a user now. Build failed, of course it does. What's this? Okay, let's give this a try as well. Then try. And then extra trailing closure passed in call. Okay, so what is going on here? Return. Oh yeah, of course. We need a map here. Otherwise it's not gonna work. So after the return save the use, we're gonna need map. Otherwise it's not gonna call this function, and then it is not gonna work. So mapping is actually used to change the result. So in this case, the result is user model, but we want to use user to convert public. So that's why we actually call the map, so that we change user model into user.public. So we're going to open up Postman. I have test as a username, test@gmail.com, and let's send this. Yes, as you can see, we actually created a new user here. This is pretty cool. So we actually retrieved the username, the ID of the user, the email, and the created ad. Pretty cool. And this is actually a safe way of coding. Pretty cool. So we're already longer into this video. We're gonna stop here. A lot of this video is gonna be cut out because I had like a lot of problems with Xcode, because Xcode was crashing all the time. I had to update Xcode in between, so that's also really funny, especially when the internet is slow today, so you have to wait a few hours, but doesn't matter. So as you can see, this works pretty well. And in the next video, let's see, I think in the next video we're actually going to create a new enum with some routes, and that's also going to be really interesting. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you understand how and what we are doing. And in the next video, we're actually going to build more on this API, and it's going to be really funny. So thank you for watching, and I see you next time.